Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous day. Facebook finally gave me back my light adjustment. So happy to see that. Now, if you don't know me, if you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom, a nana, a significant other. I am a wellness advocate. I believe that we can share information with each other that will help promote everybody's wellness. I'm a runner. I'm a jazzercise girl. I own an online activewear boutique, and I just love this forum. This is my 27th week doing Wellness Wednesday. I love to learn. So if you ever are listening to one of these and you have a topic that you would like to see covered and aren't really sure where to start, I am happy to look into that for you. So send me a message, drop me a comment. Last week's Wellness Wednesday was actually a topic that someone else asked me about. A lot of times just a short conversation with someone can launch an idea for a topic, and I don't have any problem looking that up. So one thing I will tell you is that Facebook is a little bit different each day, and last week there were a lot of comments on my live that I did not see till afterwards. So please let me know you're here. If you see this, if you're here, say hi. And if you don't see this till afterwards, hit hashtag replay in the comments, or just let me know with a comment that you've seen it. But if you do ask a question or make a statement while I'm on and I don't respond, it's because it's one of those days where Facebook's like, no, you're not going to see the things till afterwards, and that's okay. Excuse me. Still fighting a little bit with the pollen. It's getting better. And mornings, until I get up and start moving around, it sometimes is a little weird. So I apologize. So wellness is a broad topic. It covers a lot of ground. In these talks, in 27 weeks, we've covered all kinds of things: anxiety, depression, fear. We've covered diet. We've covered exercise, little tidbits of each thing. And I actually had another topic planned for today, but in my VIP group, we were doing a 10-day challenge, and I asked each of them on one of the days. We do a wild card every day in a lot of my challenges. I asked my VIPs to choose a goal that they wanted to complete within that week, and mine was to meditate consistently every single day. Good morning, Miss Carla. And for that whole week. And I did actually do that. And this week I'm so excited that I have added a minute to my 5-minute meditation. So now it's 6 minutes every day. So I'm hoping to keep this momentum going. But while I was meditating the other day, I thought of something that I had done before, and it moved up the list of topics. So here we are today. And you'll understand in a few minutes why my title is Put Your Oxygen Mask On. So a month or so ago, I guess about a month ago, I was asked to speak to a local skill building class. If you're local, you know which one I'm talking about. It's Andy Hicks. He does these amazing classes targeted at kids from 10 to 17 years old. Good morning, Danielle. And I was asked to speak there to the kids. And I was very nervous. I obviously have no problem talking, but how to talk to kids that age was a little difficult for me. And I ended up speaking about feeding yourselves, and that's what I'm going to tell you about today. Because at the end of that speaking engagement, of course, I went back and I did some research on what previous speakers had said in the skill building classes. So that I would make sure that I wasn't covering anything that had already been covered. But I wanted to talk about wellness in a way that I could speak to kids about without getting too convoluted, because, kids, much like some adults, our attention span is about this big. So, when I got done, what I ended up talking to them about was some things that I wish somebody would have told me earlier in life. So that I would have been more open to doing some of the things I'm doing now earlier on. And of course, I absolutely believe there's a reason for everything and that God's timing is perfect. So the fact that I'm working on the things I'm working on now means now is the time. But at the same time, there's things I wish I would have known earlier in life that I know now. And when I got done speaking, a parent actually came up to me and said, "You really planted a seed with me." She shared that she had been trying to make some changes and she was second guessing whether or not she should, and the difficulty of those. And that after listening to me, she just felt like I was really there to speak to her. So I have no doubt that I was there for a reason, whether it was for those kids, whether I was able to plant a seed that would come back around to them at some point in time, or whether if it was this for this particular person. It occurred to me that maybe this is something we all need to hear regardless of how old we are, because it's pretty simple stuff. And one of the things that I stated in that speaking engagement was that the stuff that I was going to say was possibly things they'd heard before and probably things they were going to hear over and over and over again. And those of you that follow me have heard me say this before. Some things are things that you've heard over and over and over again, but sometimes it's just that right moment or coming from that right person that makes it stick. So if sometimes I sound repetitive, there's a reason for that. It took me years and years and years of hearing the same things over and over and reading the same things over and over before things started finally clicking. And sometimes it seems like that all happened overnight, but I promise you, and if any of you have experienced what I have, it's not overnight. It's a long, lifelong process of trying to make yourself better. And then it sometimes does seem like it clicks all at once. Okay, so the question I started with the kids was, how many of you have ever flown? So I'll ask you the same question. How many of you have ever flown? I think that most of you that are on here regularly have. If you are watching this for the first time, if you've ever flown, then you know that before the flight takes off, that now it's fancy now. When I was younger, it wasn't as fancy. They drop down the videos if there's video screens, and the flight attendant gets up and they talk about safety. They talk about how to buckle your seatbelt and when it's okay to get up and move, when it's not. And they talk about what happens in the case of an emergency with the plane. And that if the oxygen masks, if there's an oxygen breach or an emergency with the plane, the oxygen masks are going to drop from the ceiling, and that the adult, when they're talking to you, they're telling you that you must put your oxygen mask on and get it situated and make sure it's working before you put one on your child or try to help anyone else that is having trouble. And the reason that they do that, and the kids were actually pretty smart. Most of them had flown and they understood what I was talking about. But because they were kids, I'm sure that they deferred to their parents to listen to that stuff and weren't really paying attention. But the reason that you are told to do that is because you can't help anyone else if you can't breathe. Because you can't take care of others if you are not taking care of yourself. So, the way I put it to the kids was kind of what do you mean mom's supposed to put her mask on first? She's supposed to take care of me, isn't she? But the truth of the matter is that another way to say this is you can't pour from an empty cup. You cannot help others effectively if you are not taking care of yourself. So how do we do that? And I'm going to say this in the simplest of terms because I had to kind of reduce this. I had a short amount of time to speak and I was talking to children. So there were certain trails I just couldn't go down. But so how do we do that? How do we take care of ourselves so that we are able to take care of others? And Danielle and Carla, I know you're on here listening right now. I know you kind of both know this. We're just going to talk about it again because it helps to affirm and make things stick, especially if we're having rough moments where it's hard to remember the things that we know that are good for us. Feed your brain. There's 3 things that you can feed that'll help you take care of you so that you can take care of others effectively and help them when they need it. Feed your brain. Never stop learning. Knowledge is power and knowledge is growth. And it was so cool watching these kids. They're learning all these fantastic skills that really just, if they're being taught in the schools, they're being taught at a very minimal, whereas these skills building classes are digging in hard. But feed your brain. It doesn't matter if you're 10. It doesn't matter if you're 17. It doesn't matter if you're 49. I am 49 years old. I am researching grad school right now so that I can go back and get my master's. Feed your brain. Knowledge is power and growth. We've talked about that in terms of fear. We've talked about that in terms of approaching loved ones who have depression. Our brains are very powerful. And the more we feed them, the more we keep them working at an optimum level, the more likely we are to slow cognitive and memory decline. And that means you're not crazy for thinking about college or new certifications or learning new skills or anything of the like, no matter what age you are. So I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to the 10 or the 17-year-olds now. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to me. The more we continue to learn, the better off we are. Our brains are uniquely plastic. We may have grown up with some bad programming, some learned behavior patterns that weren't healthy. And the more we learn, the more we can undo those. We have the ability to completely retrain the way we think. And it's amazing. But you have to continue to learn, because the moment that you think you have nothing left to learn, then you will grow stagnant and maybe even start going backwards. I've known people, I've been in relationships with people who were, in their 40s, in their 50s, and thought they knew everything they needed to know about life and didn't feel the need to change. It is extremely important to continue learning new skills, learning new information, learning new things about yourself. That is how we continue to evolve. And that is truly how we live our best life. So feed your brain by continuing to learn new things. Feed your body. Now, you guys know I can go all day on this. And I actually, before I came on, I read a post of a friend of mine on Facebook who stated that they had been suffering from chronic arthritis in their ankles. And they had been eating Aleve and ibuprofen and things like that, like candy, and that several months ago they went to the doctor, and the doctor said that they were on the edge of kidney failure, presumably because of all the Aleve, all the ibuprofen. They made some recommendations, and none of those seemed to work for that individual. And that person started cutting out all the processed food and all the sugar, processed sugar out of their diet. And by their description, started eating only what a caveman would eat. So I can only assume that means that they kind of went in the direction of the paleo diet. There's different schools of thoughts on different diets. But the point was that individual completely cut out, or mostly cut out, processed foods and sugars, and is now feeling better than they ever have in their life. They are no longer touching the over-the-counter pain medications. Their weightlifting at the gym has increased significantly, and they have way more energy than they've ever had before. So it's really important to feed your body, which also feeds your brain. Now, I didn't get into the nitty-gritty of bad food versus good food or anything like that with the kids. What I did say is, if you've ever skipped a meal, if you feel ill or tired all the time, because kids skip meals all the time. I got a news flash for you. Adults skip meals all the time too. If you've ever skipped a meal, if you've ever felt ill and tired all the time, it's hard to put what you're learning to use for yourself and others if you are not feeding your body, which also feeds your brain. Eating regularly, which means not skipping meals. And I know that there's some schools of thought that say that only eat when you're hungry. But for me personally, I have to eat by the clock because I don't always get hungry. I tend to go from not hungry at all to, oh my gosh, I'm going to pass out if I don't eat 5 minutes ago. So for that reason, I have to eat by the clock. There are schools of thought that say if you want to lose weight, if you want to maintain a healthy weight, that you only eat when you're hungry. And if that was the case for me, we'd be in trouble. I would have some serious issues. So I eat by the clock, and I try to make sure, but I've been known to skip meals because if I get busy and I'm not paying attention to the clock, then I might grab a cheese stick out of the refrigerator at noon, and finally break down and grab a protein bar at 2 when I have that feeling that I'm going to pass out. So eating regularly and trying new things, especially non-processed things, as healthy as possible, trying new things as often as possible, especially different fruits and veggies, That's where you get your energy. Now, like I said, we're talking kid talk versus adult talk, you know. One of the things that I researched before I did this speaking engagement was with kids, you don't want to get into emphasizing bad food versus good food because you don't want to teach them an unhealthy relationship with food in general. And I can see that. I can actually see where I may have even done things like that as a parent in the interest of trying to get my child to eat better. So what I said to them is to try to eat as regularly as possible and to try to new things as often as possible, especially the fruits and veggies and the proteins, because those are the foods that give you your energy. They feed your body and they feed your brain. You can think more clearly when you're not feeling like you're about to pass out from not eating, when your blood sugar's not dropping. And I couldn't get into all of that with them because there just wasn't time. But that is the truth. The better you eat, the more you are feeding not only your body, but your brain as well. And then you need to move your body. That was the next thing under feeding your body, was to move your body. Our bodies were not designed to sit still. They were designed to move. When you move, you're moving blood flow, which means you're using that blood to move oxygen to all the important things, including your brain. So again, feeding your body means feeding your brain. So that's really hard to do. You know, for kids, they're sitting in school all day. They're in front of screens a lot more than they ever were before. Even for some adults, like since I started working from home, even though I have a standing desk, I find that I'm not walking around as much and I'm not getting near the steps. So I still have to force myself to stop and move, walk around, do a couple laps around the house, whatever, to kind of get those steps and get what I call my screen gaze, where my eyes just start to glaze over and I stop blinking, to get that to stop. So moving your body is important, even if you're not in sports, even if you're not athletic, don't feel athletically inclined. Some of those things are learned skills, and you don't need a structured sport. You don't have to be a runner like me to move your body. You can go for a walk, 3 to 5 days a week. Make sure you get a 30-minute walk in. I have a really cute kitchen workout. My mother sent me a TikTok or a reel or something that shows a kitchen workout. That's something that I can share if you're interested in. It's not mine, but I'm happy to share it with you if you're interested. It's like a basic kitchen workout where you're using your counters. Good morning, Marie, to kind of do push-ups and tricep things. It's really important to keep your body moving. And I know that there's a lot of people who have more active jobs that feel like they move enough in their jobs that they don't need to when they get home. But the longer you sit, there's research that shows that a sedentary lifestyle or sitting too much can actually be as dangerous as some of the other things that you would never dream of comparing that to. Of which I cannot think of any right now, but you get the point. Move your body. That moves the blood, that moves the oxygen, that helps you digest the food. The food gives you the energy. All of that feeds your brain. Feed your body. And finally, feed your heart and soul. First of all, and you all know I've talked about this before, and I will talk about it at every opportunity I get because I lived it. I can remember a boyfriend getting so upset with me because I literally tore into myself in the mirror at one point. And tore into myself. And I think I've shared before that when I was doing a fitting for a customer, there you go, Carla. Yes, use everything in your home as potential gym equipment as long as you do it safely. I had a customer that I was doing an activewear fitting for, and I never really understood how he felt that day when I tore into myself until I witnessed her tearing into herself. Just ripping herself apart in the mirror with every cuss word you could possibly imagine. And that's when I realized why he was so upset with me and so concerned and so angry that day. Because that's where I was at that time in my life and during that relationship, was just constantly just tearing myself down. So how do you be kind to yourself? You take care of yourself. You feed your body, you feed your brain, and you speak nicely to yourself. I cannot stress this enough. And I'm getting better at saying it without getting teary, but don't speak to yourself in the mirror. in a way that you would not speak to the person you love the most. Here we go. I can't say it any more clearly than that. What you say to yourself, if a child who is told they are bad all the time will eventually become bad because they will believe that about themselves and they'll start telling themselves that too. You must be kind to yourself. You must speak nicely to yourself. If you are the person you love most in the world, your child, your significant other, your sister, your brother, if you would not tell them that they are ugly or fat or stupid, then you shouldn't be saying that to yourself. Okay? So always be kind to yourself. Take care of yourself. Do the things you need to do for self-care. If you need time out, take a little time out. If you need to soak in a bathtub with a glass of wine and get some time to yourself, run to get away and clear your head, whatever. Take care of yourself. And most importantly, what you say to yourself all the time is so crucial. It's so crucial in feeding your heart and soul. Okay? And then, of course, the second part of feeding your heart and soul is to be kind to others, to help and give back every opportunity you get. All of the people that are involved in that skill building class, they're all people that have become successful in one way, shape, or form. And they are now finding ways to give back. So if you have an opportunity to help or you have an opportunity to give back with the skills and the knowledge that you are constantly learning, because we're never going to stop learning, right? Then you should do that. Because it helps your community, it helps your church, whatever the situation is where you find yourself giving back, it helps. For example, I am becoming involved with NAMI. My contact at NAMI would probably like me to become involved a little bit faster, but she understands that I do have a lot on my plate. But I am going to be learning to work with NAMI on a volunteer basis. And we're going to talk about NAMI more in another episode because I'm going to ask them to be a guest speaker here in a few weeks to explain what NAMI is and what NAMI does. But it is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I am going to be working with them, one, because it's my heart's desire, and two, because it's going to be fantastic field experience for my grad school studies. So, again, we'll be talking about that more, but I was approached and I am excited about helping with NAMI because of my experiences and what I've learned about depression and anxiety. And I know that I can help others with that knowledge. So whatever your skill is, whatever your ability is, even if it's just like these kids in this class, they learned how to change tires. Good morning, Ann. They learned how to change tires. So now as they get older, if they keep that skill fresh, if they see one of us broken down on the side of the road, they can pull over and help because they've learned those skills. So that was the final thing I impressed upon them as part, and I'm pressing upon you, that part of feeding your heart and soul, and you've heard me talk about this before, sometimes when you're down, you're feeling depressed or whatever, or you're feeling extra anxious, it really helps to focus on somebody else instead of yourself. So if you have the ability to help others with what you've learned, with what you've gained, then do it. You absolutely should. So in summary, you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of anybody else. You have to put that oxygen mask on and make sure you're breathing before you can help anyone else do that. And how do you do that? You do that by feeding your brain. You do that by feeding your body with good food and exercise. Feed your brain with learning, and feed your heart and soul by taking care of yourself, by speaking always nicely to yourself, and then also helping others when you get the opportunity. So I think that that is a pretty great lesson for any of us at any age, because again, our brains are so uniquely plastic that we can change our frame of mind and we can change our trajectory at any point in time that we choose to, if we just choose to and do the work. You can't just make up your mind you're going to change and then wait for it to happen, right? But that is how we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. We feed our brains, we feed our bodies, and we feed our hearts and souls. And I hope you found that helpful. I I loved speaking to the kids, and I love speaking to you all every single week. I love it when you share ideas like Carla using your home, anything in your home as potential gym equipment. I absolutely love it. But just just take care of you. Make sure you take care of you first. It's not selfish. It's selfish if you're doing it with the wrong attitude, like screw everybody else. This is what I'm doing. But if you're doing it with the attitude of you understand that you need to do those things for yourself in order to be the best you that you can be, there is absolutely nothing selfish about that. So that is all I have to say. I think that was plenty. If you found this helpful, please feel free to share. Let me know that you saw it. If you missed it while I was on, I saw a couple of comments and a couple of people pop on, but I'm curious to see what comments there may be when I get done here that I didn't see while I was on. Again, if there's anything you would like to see me cover as a Wellness Wednesday topic, please feel free to message me or drop a comment. My rules are no politics, no negativity. And yes, some of these topics may seem negative when we start talking about them, but what we're usually doing is looking for positive ways to approach that issue, whatever it is. So again, if you found this helpful, share, let me know, send me a message if there's something you'd like to see me cover. And thank you so much for being here. Next week, we're going to talk about energy leaks. And I look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, have a fabulous day and be well. Bye.